And the first guy on our list, though, is Nicholas Petit-Frere. Now, he is the offensive lineman from Florida, and here are the teams that he is considering. We have,
So it's Florida, it's Florida, it's Notre Dame, it's Alabama. There's an outside chance for Michigan. There's an outside chance for an Ohio State, a really outside chance for Georgia at this point. But he's the top guy left on the board. He's a massive offensive tackle from the Tampa area. One note, I mean, just on the side, we talked about this a few weeks ago, the little Jim Harbaugh mind tricks. I mean, they purposely practice at his high school, Michigan did, during the Outback Bowl to get the opportunity for him to just be, you can't talk to him, then Michigan can't approach him, but he was pictured multiple times coming and watching the Michigan practice. Yeah, exactly. And you know that if you're a booster, if you're an alumni, if anybody outside of Michigan football program who's employed, you can walk up to him and say, hey, give him a go blue, give him a hey, we want to see you. And that was the point of Michigan going there. But it doesn't seem like it's going to matter. From what I have been reading, and I haven't done a ton of work to kind of give me inside info on this guy, it looks like it's going to be the Florida Gators. Had they not brought in Dan Mullen, if they brought in someone outside of kind of the Florida family, I don't know if you would have got him to stick in. I know that a lot of people at his high school are Florida alums. His high school coaching staff has some Florida, Gator backers involved, and I think the hometown team is where his coaches, his family wants him to stay. They got a coach those people can buy into, and as such, I think we'll see him as a Gator. I don't think it's gonna be Notre Dame, even though that's been a school he's really looked at. Don't count out Alabama. They've been known to just go in and say, yeah, we want this guy now. He's ours.
Yeah, if Florida gets him, that'd be a huge get for Dan Mullen because you've got Emory Jones and their stud future left tackle. That's a good way to start your first class as the Gators head coach.
All right, the 11th best prospect, according to 24/7, is Patrick Surtain Jr. Now, his dad played in the NFL, so he's got a nice little bloodline going. And here are the teams that he's considering: LSU, Florida State, and Miami. So definitely heavier on the Florida side, hometown teams.
I think LSU is also in the mix there, and I think there's a common theme there for the most part is all these teams at various points, I think, have been able to claim the DBU moniker. I think LSU, I believe, still deserves that moniker because they've been fantastic on that. And I think, and I need to go back and double check, I'm pretty sure I've got a football card of his dad's at my house in Ohio somewhere. I need to go back and double check, but I'm pretty sure I've got one of his dad's cards, which is pretty cool.
Of course you do, Tom. Everyone had that. And he's been called one of the greatest cornerback prospects of all time, right? And I was a little surprised that LSU seems to be the overwhelming favorite. If you talk to the people who do this every single day, who are calling him or talking to his coaches, they seem like it's going to be LSU with, I think, the uncertainty at LSU. They've just lost an offensive coordinator. I don't know that doesn't make a big difference to Surtain because he's a defensive guy. But I think Coach Oka will win next year, potentially in the hot seat. If they don't win 9 games, and even if they do, potentially, he could be on the hot seat. When LSU looks around college football and sees teams like UCLA getting Chip Kelly, they got to look across and say, hey, what team do we have an advantage coaching-wise when we have Coach O on our side? And then, hopefully he turns around. But I was surprised Surtain is looking at LSU with the hometown teams and his dad's alma mater. We've got FSU, Miami, Florida Gators in his state, and then even just a little bit north, the Georgia Bulldogs. I'm surprised LSU might be the team.
I think LSU can tell them, hey, come be our next Patrick Peterson. Like they have a pretty good track record of sending defensive backs into the NFL.
They have the best track record for sure. I just think it's surprising based on the coaching staff where they're at. This ain't your older brother's LSU until I see Coach O prove it over the next few years.
All right, so up next on our top remaining recruits in the class of 2018, yet to declare, we have Tyson Campbell, the 5-star cornerback from Fort Lauderdale, Florida. And our sources tell us that it's basically between 2 teams, and that's Georgia and Miami, but also Bama is in the mix.
Bama seems to be in the mix for all these guys.
Like, oh,
Bama will get him.
Of course.
Yeah, another 5-star guy that I think is going to end up at Georgia. He's from Fort Lauderdale, so he's going to have to drive up, that whole state of Florida to get there. So it's not like it's close by or they have any geographical advantage. You might see him end up at Miami should those, hometown, heartstrings be tugged down a little by his family. But I doubt it'll be Alabama. If Georgia gets this guy, I mean, what more can you say about this Georgia recruiting class? If they get another 5-star player after all the players they brought in on signing day and the days surrounding the first signing day of December 20th, this would be a huge, huge get for him, stealing him from Miami. And I love the just built-in rivalry between Mark Richt and Kirby Smart, the ex-Georgia coach, the current Georgia coach, with getting Tyson Campbell. So I think he's going to end up at Georgia, but don't count out Miami just yet.
All right, up next, we have the 19th best prospect in the nation, the 6'1" wide receiver coming out of Louisiana. And his top two teams seem to be TCU and LSU, with more of a emphasis on LSU.
Yeah. I'll give TCU credit, though. They seem to push really hard at some of these kids from Louisiana, try and poach them away from the main in-state school.
Yeah, so he's going to go to LSU. I think it's a foregone conclusion. I was surprised he was not a player that didn't commit on the 12-20 deadline, Tom, to be frank. We saw him, he's generally considered one of the top 2 or 3 wide receivers in the country. I watched some of his film at the recent All-Star game that he was in. I don't know if I saw as much out of him as I would have liked. Doesn't have the dominating size of some of these other 5-star guys when you get up to 6'3", 6'4". So Jamar Chase will probably end up at LSU, but as you said before, who's going to play the quarterback for LSU to get him the ball?
Good point.
All right, up next, the 33 best prospect in the nation is Elijah Griffin, cornerback out of California. Now, his teams that he's really considering at the moment, SC, obviously being from Southern California, but also Tennessee and Florida are in the mix, guys.
It's a strange grouping there, I think. You
All
got the
over the
hometown
US.
team, and then, okay, I'm gonna go east and go to the SEC, and it's not going to be Alabama.
I wouldn't be surprised. I mean, most people are saying that Chip Kelly doesn't have a great shot for him. The overwhelming consensus is he's going to stick with USC, which has been basically like his high school. Mission Viejo has been a pipeline to USC for the past 25 years. Every prospect that comes out of that school basically goes to USC. But don't count out Chip Kelly. I really think if you get Chip Kelly to come to your house the day after the USC coaching staff comes to your house, I don't know how you're going to say I still want to go to USC, just to be frank.
All right, up next is the 35th best prospect in the nation. That's Isaac Taylor Sturt. Now, he is also a quarterback out of California and also considering USC, Bama, and Texas A&M as well.
Maybe Jimbo Fisher can help boost that A&M class, but it looks like USC is the early favorite right now for Isaac. Again, things change. These are kids involved here, but look, USC has had a relatively decent track record of producing cornerbacks. Adderey Jackson is the one that jumps out in my mind most recently. And when you're from USC, or from the state of California, USC is, especially as of late, maybe a little bit less as of late, but in the past decade or so, has been such a focal point team.
Yeah, and so he's from San Diego, Tom. Also, great hair. He's got the dreadlocks with the blonde tips. I love that look. And so he grew up as, when he was 6'5", 6'7" years old, Tom, Reggie Bush was the kid who just left San Diego as a high school football player, went to USC. So San Diego, although not typically like a big college town, turned into a USC town after Reggie Bush 2005 for 3 time frame. And so with that being said, I think he will end up, Taylor Stewart, going to USC, because that's where people in his hometown are rooting for right now. That's where his high school coaches are rooting for now. I think that's where he's going to end up.
All right, 35th best prospect, or excuse me, 38th best prospect in the nation is Tanner McGee, quarterback out of California. A lot of the prospects that he's considering, or teams he's considering, basically Stanford. We've been told that he's almost 100% ready to declare to be a Cardinal, but also took a visit to BYU, and Texas is in the mix.
So this is an interesting one with Tanner McGee, because
interesting.
He is going to sit out for a couple years, and this is typically a thing that we see with prospects who go to BYU specifically. They are known for having 25-year-olds on their roster who did a 2 or 3 year mission. So he's Mormon. He's going to go on a Mormon mission. The allure of Stanford and the academic, prestige that they have, and I think just the quarterback development they've had really for the last 10 plus years is really top notch. And who's recruited better quarterback than Stanford? They basically have a top 25 guy in the country for 4 or 5 straight years after Andrew Luck left that school. So we'll see what happens. He's not going to get on a college football campus to 2020 at the earliest, maybe 2021. So not going to be an instant impact guy. It sounds like it's Stanford. He just visited this past weekend, but the allure of going to BYU as a Mormon does exist for a lot of those players. He knows he's going to come back as a 21-year-old freshman and be around other 21-year-old freshmen. I think that could be a difference maker, but look for him to commit to Stanford. Another coup for David Shaw, but one who's not going to make an impact, for 3-4 more years down the road for sure.
It's so weird. You sign him as a recruit, and then you say, all right, we'll see you in 2 years. Like, that's just like, it's so unusual to see a highly touted recruit fit in that mold there. And of course, he's Mormon. That's why he's considering BYU. That's what all Mormon recruits end up doing.
McKee, great size though, 6'6", and is considered the 3rd best pro quarterback in the class of 2018. Let's take it to the 47th best prospect now, and that's Rasheed Walker. Now, he's an offensive lineman coming out of Waldorf, Maryland. The teams that he said that he is highly considering at the moment, Penn State and Ohio State, so some Big Ten representation here, but with Penn State having a slightly higher regard for him.
He's from Maryland, so I guess it's a little bit closer. And Penn State, in general, always seems to be in need of offensive line help. I mean, I think we remember the Christian Hackenberg years where it was a gigantic disaster. You know, so I think Penn State will end up getting him, and that'd be another big get for James Franklin.
Yeah, the thing I like about Franklin, what he's done lately is he has tried to reestablish Penn State as the brand of the East Coast, right? For so many years, kind of Joe Paterno's last few, I guess really like the last 10 years of Paterno and beyond, you got this thing where Florida State, Miami were going up and getting kids off the East Coast. Clemson started to do it. Michigan, Ohio State, Notre Dame really rated Penn State's recruiting area. And so he has put an emphasis on winning Maryland, winning Upper New York, winning those New England states that they had lost, winning New Jersey, that he had lost for quite a few years. So I think he's going to end up with Penn State. Will be a big get for them. You know, you can never turn down a great offensive lineman. It always helps.
All right, at number 53, you have Penei Sewell. Now, he is an offensive lineman, a guard actually from Utah. Teams that he's considering, he's looking at my Oregon Ducks as well as Alabama and USC.
Funny how he's from Utah, and these Utah guys always intrigue me because they almost never actually go to Utah. Like when they're one of the top recruits, they always go elsewhere, oftentimes to the West Coast. It'd be a big get for Oregon, but I think Alabama in general could use some more offensive linemen because they have lost some guys to transfers and some guys to the NFL. Oregon would be a huge get there, and I think that'd be a big get for Mario Cristobal as he had retained quite a few notable players, hasn't necessarily gone out and added a bunch of those players yet.
Yeah, Tom, you say the Utah guys never stay in Utah, and I am always a skeptic of these Utah guys who are huge, like, you know, these big, massive linemen or these defensive linemen, or sometimes the Samoan players who go and play in the state of Utah as high school players, because who are they playing against? We're talking about the second or third worst major, big land state for high school football in the country. So I always think it's like you see their film and it's like an NFL player playing against high school kids. So I never know what to take away from these kids. I think he falls into one of these categories. So probably going to end up at Oregon, most likely. But again, Alabama, they recruit nationally as good as anybody. We'll see what happens on the line, but I think he's going to stick with Oregon.
I mean, these highlights do kind of look like an NFL player against high school kids. He's just throwing them around like rag dolls out there.
Yeah, I mean, he's probably never played, and I might be speaking out of turn here, but I doubt he's ever played with a guy within 60 pounds of his weight his entire life.
6'5",
so
350.
We'll see what happens here.
That is one big dude. All right, number
Program
54.
weight, okay.
Number 54, we have Solomon Tulia Apupu. Now, he's a 4-star inside linebacker coming out of Santa Ana, California. And just like a lot of these Southern California kids, he's definitely taking a look at USC, UCLA also in the mix, and plus Notre Dame.
I feel pretty confident he's going to end up going to USC.
Yep.
Got that pipeline going there with his high school, and it just makes sense. And USC, I think in general, this would be a good fit. He can sit a year behind some guys like Porter Gustin and Cameron Smith and then make his big impact next year.
Yeah, big athlete. He's really a great athlete. I watched some of his film. I think he should be a little bit higher ranked. He's going to stick with, or he's going to end up going to USC, not stick with them. Always surprised how many Southern California kids look at Notre Dame. There's still a big national draw in California for Notre Dame, but he's going to go to USC. And he won't be an instant impact player for a starter, but he will not redshirt next year, and he'll see special teams and some backup play.
All right, number 64, we have Jalen Waddle. Now, he's a wide receiver out of Texas, kind of a smaller dude, just 5'9.5", 175, but already is taking a look at Texas A&M, Bama, and FSU, and that would be a good pickup for Jimbo Fisher.
I think, well, with Christian Kirk gone, they definitely do need some more receivers. And remember, I'll mention this now, when you're listed at 5'9.5", 175.
You're 5'7", right?
Yeah, that's exactly what I'm going to say. These the program or high school weights are often inaccurate, so he might actually be a little bit smaller than that.
Yeah,
but he's fast.
Sure. And so he was a guy that Jimbo Fisher really had in his sights when he was at Florida State. The first weekend Jimbo Fisher was on campus at Texas A&M, Waddle was an official visitor there. So I think because of that relationship with Fisher that he developed when he was at Florida State, this is one of those, hey, I'm going to transfer over kind of guys. He's going to end up at Texas A&M because Fisher is the guy that recruited him in high school most. And it's just like, hey, here's my new program. We're going to be what you want out of Florida State. No problem at all. He'll end up at Texas A&M.
All right, number 67, the nation. That's Dax Holyfield. Great name. Jinx, linebacker out of North Carolina, and he's taking a look at UNC, Virginia Tech, and Stanford. So looking at a little West Coast team.
Interesting grouping.
It is.
You get he's from North Carolina, so he'll look at UNC. I guess Virginia Tech's not that far away, and Stanford is, Stanford. I don't really know where this is going to end up going. I think maybe you could see if UNC was better this year, and if they weren't awful, I think they might have had a better shot at him. So
he was on campus at Stanford this past weekend with Tanner McKee, and I think it's by nature. You put two guys who are both considering. You kind of get them in the same room, see if you can get the hey, I'm going to go here. You're going to go here, especially if they have a good relationship together. I think he's going to end up at Stanford. From what I've read, very highly academically focused young man, and that's why Stanford, guys, has been able, all of a sudden, after never being able to recruit nationally, all of a sudden has become a national recruiter. You see very few of their recruits, being in the state of California or being in the Bay Area where they're located, because they have such a limited pool that they can recruit from, because they're the only school of the major Power 5 conferences that makes no academic, what's the word I'm looking for, exceptions for athletes. You have to be better academically qualified than the worst student that gets in your class. So Stanford is a very small pool, about 40 or 50 guys in the entire country that have the talent level academically and then athletically to play. And so that's why I think Holyfield is going to end up there. They're going to sell him on, hey, if you don't make it to the pros, you're going to get off the field when it comes to a great job.
All right, number 68, that's William Barnes, the 6'4", 325 offensive lineman out of Florida. And it's a no-brainer, guys. He is considering the Gators for this. And we hear from our sources that's kind of where he's leaning at the moment.
And he's from Florida, I guess UNC, so technically in the mix. But when you can choose Florida or a really bad North Carolina program right now, I would imagine you'd pick Florida, the home state, right?
Yeah, and Dan Mullen has done a really strong job here. I mean, that program went a couple months without a head coach, really, and Mullen comes in. He knows Florida. That's the benefit of sometimes one of our guys coming in or hiring a former assistant or a former player, is they don't have to come in and introduce themselves, learn the fight song, all that stuff. He's got the relationships in the state of Florida. He recruited there for 5-6 years under Urban Meyer. And he's been, of course, doing it in Mississippi State. There's not enough talent in the state of Mississippi. So he's gone into the state of Florida, knows all the high school coaches, knows all the players, and he kind of is going to say, hey, what we got under Urban Meyer 8-10 years ago, that's what we're going to start building here again. And I'm really surprised with how strongly Mullen has done after that program was basically falling apart in the middle of October.
Couldn't agree more.
All right, up next at number 76, it's Michael Thompson, the defensive tackle coming out of Missouri. Now, he's a 4-star defensive tackle, and he's heavily considering Mizzou with his number 1, with some regards to Oklahoma, but it seems like all signs are pointing towards Mizzou.
That would be a big get for Missouri to keep that top-rated recruit in-state, recruit the backyard well, and we often don't see Missouri keep those type of guys. Not that there are often a lot of stud recruits coming out of Missouri, but when you get a chance to keep that guy, I think this has been Missouri's top priority for quite a while on the recruiting trail, and showing him the love, saying, hey, stay in state.
I never understood that. Why would he want to go to Missouri? I hate to say it, but when you have the opportunity to go to Oklahoma or even Texas, just within a few hours drive, for maybe 6-8 hours, depending on which school, from your campus, why would you go to Missouri and be looking at 3-9, 4-8, 5-7 seasons for the next 3 or 4 seasons? It doesn't make a lot of sense to me. But from everything I've read, he's going to stick home and go to Missouri. Tom,
I get what you're saying there, but I do think we got to remember that these are kids, and sometimes kids don't want to go away for school, and sometimes kids do want to go away from school, and they won't consider schools that are all that close to them.
And I think a lot of people forget too how much parents really have to play in where kids choose to go to school. And if a mama wants her son in the state, chances are that she's going to listen to him.
I wasn't allowed to go to Texas.
One thing to keep an eye out for, visiting Oklahoma this weekend. Large game Lincoln could take his large game coaching prowess onto the recruiting trail and nail the top prospect in the state of Missouri. Michael Thompson visiting Norman this weekend, a last-ditch effort. He's already taken his official in Missouri, so they won't have another shot of getting him on campus after Oklahoma in an official capacity. He could always visit there on his own dime if he wanted to.
All right, last name we have on the top remaining recruits of 2018 is Leon O'Neal, the safety out of Cypress, Texas. 4-star guy, 6'1", 190, great size, and he's looking to stay in his home state, Texas A&M, and Oklahoma, which is not too far north.
I think that'd be a big hit for Jimbo Fisher. You don't see Texas on there. Texas had a really good early signing day period, and they've already got a bunch of stud defensive backs. I think when you're a kid like O'Neal, you go, well, yeah, well, I could sit on the bench at Texas, or I can go play for Jimbo Fisher, maybe get on the field a little bit earlier.
Yeah, so he was a Texas A&M commitment, right? Texas A&M commitment, decommitted from Texas, or Texas A&M, when Kevin Sumlin was kind of under the gun, and then on December 1st, 8 days later, he's on campus. Jimbo Fisher's first weekend, the weekend we talked about a few minutes ago, he comes on campus, and I think it's just like the same thing. You were committed here. We got the best coaching hire, the second best coaching hire of the country other than UCLA. Why would you go somewhere else? Why would you look around? And that's kind of where we sit. He's already taken his official visit to Oklahoma, so they don't have an opportunity to come back and kind of sway him with a weekend on campus. And just got a few new offers this past week. Arkansas recently offered him, but I think he's going to stick with the team he's committed to for a while, and that's the Texas A&M Aggies.